going over the hook punch. So when we're thinking about the hook, there's a lot of different ways to throw the hook. Every martial art throws it slightly different. So we're just going to focus on the main points of how the punch goes through the motions. So the first thing we need to be thinking about is rotation. The second thing we need to be thinking is elevation of the elbow. The third thing is protection of the wrist. These are the main 3 points of the hook. That being said, like I mentioned, there's a lot of different ways of working with the hook. There's knocking hooks. We're actually striking with these parts of the knuckles. So if you're thinking about knocking on a door versus punching a door, knocking on a door, you can knock a whole lot harder and louder versus punching it. Different structure of the fist. So we strike slightly different. So that being said, first thing is rotation. If I'm going to be striking with my right hand, from your view is my left hand, hand is up. So the time we use the hook is when we need to go around our opponent's guard. So if somebody is covering up like this, we need to be able to find a way to strike to the side. So the hook opens up a little bit. No matter how we look at it, through motion and out of punches, it's a little bit easier to mask that movement. Working the hook specifically and understanding the path, we have to do it slightly wrong, which means that I have to physically open up my hand this way. Now, once I have that position, it's almost like pulling the refrigerator door open, or the freezer. If you have like a top freezer handle, if you grab onto that handle, we don't keep the elbow down and pull it. We kind of use the elbow to pull in the path of the opening in the door. So when I'm there, that opening sets me up for the movement. So now I have my hand ready. Now I need to be thinking about rotation. If I move my foot first, you can see it as a little bit of a strain in my voice. My body is not meant to move like that. So I need to engage my hip first. So what that does, it also extends all the muscles of my upper body into the shoulder and the pec, a little bit into the sides. So it creates almost like a slingshot. I'm pulling it back and then I have to release. So the rotation with the extension is where I get most of my power. So hand winds up. Once I have that position, hip starts to move, which I create a little bit more of an extension. And then from there, I push through with the foot. And then you can see it. As my foot finally starts to move, my hand goes with it. And then I strike. As far as the point of stoppage, because I don't want to be able to miss and over rotate, I work around or within my shoulders. In order to be able to strike my opponent, I have to start to the outside of my shoulder. Now, once I'm striking, I stop when I get to the opposite side of the shoulder, and then I recover the same path that I came in from. If I'm doing the rear hook, it's exactly the same thing. Hand's gonna open up, go slightly to the outside of the shoulder. I'm going to have to rotate, drive my foot, and then I'm going to strike as I stop right about where the shoulder is, a little bit over under is okay, and then I'm going to recover back at the same path. So that covers 2 of the main points, which is the movement of the body and the elevation of the hand. The striking surface of the hand is what we have to worry a little bit more about, because even with a bad execution of a hook, if we strike properly with the wrist, we don't get hurt. Goes the opposite way around. If I have a good execution of a hook, but I strike wrong, I can hurt my hand. So we need to be thinking a lot about the positioning of the hand. It's a mobile joint, and if I have a little bit of a give somewhere during the impact, it's going to hurt my wrist. So the main point behind the impact is, I want to be able to have roughly, this is the way I like to teach it, the distance between, or the spacing between my 2 big knuckles to line up with the middle of my wrist. Once that does, it puts my hand in a slightly different position. And that's all I need to look for. And then that is also the part of the body I need to connect with. The key behind not rolling and readjusting that position is that that line goes all the way down to the back of my elbow. So as long as I can keep this line, my wrist will never bend. So now when I'm moving, and I'll change angle so you guys can see it, hand goes to the outside. So right now you guys can see how my knuckles and my elbows are roughly in the same line. So when I start to rotate, they stay in the same line, and that's where I create the impact. But this keeps the opponent mid-range, which means that their face has to be about this close for me to hit it. In order for me to hit the face a little bit further away and not allow my opponent to get closer, everything stays the same, but I have to lean forward as if I was throwing a jab. So the same mechanics apply into the leaning forward so I can get closer. So it's not so much the extension of my hand, because you can see it now I'm doing this, and that's where I can hurt my wrist. So from the fighting stance, my elbow still pops up. I'm going to lean forward, which gets me closer to my target, and then I'm doing the same rotation. But now if I freeze my hand there and I move away, this is the distance that I actually just accomplished. Same with the rear hand. If I want to be able to strike mid-range, I stay there. If I want to be able to go into the further range, I'm going to keep the hand in the same position. I'm going to shift my body closer, that's when I'm gonna rotate, and then I'm gonna recover right back to my positioning. So again, it looks a little bit weird and silly with the rotation from here to here, because normally the hook is thrown from either defensive position or an offensive position. We've done a different strike beforehand. Starting out a fight like this, getting the hands up and going there is very predictive. So it's more of a possibility where we maybe created a push, my opposite hand wound up, and then I'm coming with the power side. Or it could be hands up, which looks a little bit non-threatening, then engage 1-2, sets me up for the position of the hook there. The key points again are rotation, elevation of the elbow, and positioning of your wrist. Okay, as long as we keep that straight and we stick to those 3 points, however your hook comes out and looks, you will not be able to get hurt behind the movement. And then eventually we'll fine tune as we go further into the lessons.